What perfectly true story of yours sounds like an outrageous lie? Moving interstate, all our belongings on the little trailer, pulled over the side of the road so my so could pee, too close to the side of the road, and the trailer slid down a small ditch, not enough to wreck the car but too steep for our little car to pull out. Next thing you know, a white minibus pulls up, and out jumps a half dozen guys who were a weightlifting team from I think Argentina. It was 25 years ago, not sure now. They lifted our trailer up onto the road, climbed back in their van, and drove off. Just up the street from my apartment in San Francisco, there was one of those fast food restaurants that was either a KFC or a Taco Bell, depending on the angle from which it was viewed. The establishment was a frequent stopping point for students coming from the nearby college, and those students were a frequent target for a remarkably bright crow. Now, on most days, the bird in question would just hang around the restaurant, as well as other ones nearby, and scavenge for scraps. Every once in a while, though I saw this happen twice, and had it happen to me once it would enact a much more complex scheme than simply going through the gutter. The crow had apparently discovered that money could be exchanged for food, so it would wait until it saw a likely mark, squawk at them to get their attention, then pick up and drop a coin. Anyone who responded would witness the bird hopping a few feet away, then following its victim toward the source of its next snack. When the crow approached me, it dropped a nickel on the ground. I stooped, picked up the coin, and then jumped slightly when the bird made a noise that sounded not unlike taco. Needless to say, I bought that crow a taco. The final out-of-pocket cost for me, minus the nickel, was something like $1.15. Even so, I figured a bird that smart deserved a reward simply for existing. Of course, that was probably exactly what I was supposed to think. Taylor Swift pushed me out of a swing when I was in 3rd grade. I used to go over to my neighbor's house to play just about every afternoon. He had an older sister and she just happened to be friends with the then unpopular Taylor Swift. I went over one day doing typical 1st grader things on the swing set with my neighbor. When they came out, Taylor demanded that we get out and let her swing. Rebel me said no and she said fine then, I'll push you. The next thing I know I had a skinned up knee and a mouthful of dirt. I ended up going to the same middle school and high school as her and always heard about how great she is. To me, she'll always be that pushed me out of a swing. Dude, just shake it off. My mom was pissing me off and being nasty and childish to my stepdad. I was in the field with my horse later and she came in and I whispered, "Give her hell." He promptly went up to her and bit her, and then again. He kept being super menacing to her, following her around with his ears flat against his head etc. Even though usually he was the most laid back animal ever. Eventually I went over to him, patted him and said, "Leave it," and he stopped. A year or so later he kicked the ever-living shit out of a pony who slammed into me in the field and knocked me over. I was fine, just covered in mud. But once again he didn't stop menacing this pony until I went up to him and said, "That's enough now, stop." Even typing that sounds like total BS, but I swear it's totally true. A friend of mine told me about how he went to KFC and they ran out of chicken. The churches around the corner was flooded and the guy in the back was like, "Did KFC run out of chicken again?" Like this happens on some sort of regular basis. I almost choked to death trying to warm up a frog I had picked up. It was early spring and I found a small frog moving slowly along my parents' pond. I picked it up and cupped it in my hands and held it up in my hands to breathe warm air on it, and it jumped into my mouth. It lodged in my throat and I could feel it struggling as I hawked it up. Frog in your throat? It was there long enough for me to imagine the questions my parents would have when they found my body. My grandfather brought a sword to the office and tried to behead my dad for a poor quarterly performance. Family businesses are tough. My grandfather has Alzheimer's dementia. Not sure Asian family in Asia. Everyone denies mental issues. And before that incident, our family didn't know he was unraveling. Edit. Yeah, this story is so incredible that the whole family was in a dilemma about what to say to the doctors, lawyers, bankers etc. when they needed to declare my grandfather was mentally unfit to make his own decisions. My dad was going, "What do I tell them? My dad tried to kill me with a sword? Who's going to believe this?" I mean, even my dad thought the calls he got from his employees were part of a prank. Went to the office, got stopped by the freaked out security guards asking him what they should do. and finally realized it was for real. Everyone just hid and waited it out until my grandfather got tired of waiting and went home. It even took a few more crazy incidents before the entire family believed my dad. Most of his siblings thought it was an elaborate ploy to take over the company for the longest time. And it nearly turned into a crazy court case. I played 11 degrees of random internet separation and wound up at myself. I was working on my GeoCities website in 1998 on campus at UT Austin. I was looking for design ideas to poach HTML code from a friend's website, but he didn't have anything I didn't, so I went to his list of 20 plus friends, picked a random one, and looked at that guy's page for design ideas. Then I thought, I wonder where in the world I'd end up if I did friend of a friend 10 times like that. New York, China, ice? So I did. Went to that guy's friends list, picked a random one, went to that person's friends list, and so on. The 10th person was an employee of UT, so I didn't even make it off campus, let alone to another country, but he had a webcam in his office, one of those that refreshed an image every 30 seconds. The lights were off, there were open minute blinds, but I couldn't really see much beyond them. Then I noticed that he listed his office number, FAC 222. Floor Academic Center, 2nd floor, room 222. I realized that I was doing all of this from a computer on the 2nd floor of Floor Academic Center. I looked up to see that the computer I was on was at the end of an aisle directly across from room 222. I went to the window, open mini blinds, lights off, webcam on top of his monitor. I go back to my computer to see my own face in the webcam image peeking in his window. I met a guy on Xbox Live back when people were relatively new to it. Through a series of questions we discovered he was my neighbor, looked out the window and waved. Came home late one night to find David Bowie laying on my bed watching Mary Tyler Moore on my small black and white TV. Owned an after hours club in Nick, and my boyfriend met him and brought him home to hang out. My rabbit jumped over our cat once. He used to get out all the time, so eventually we just let him roam free. He wasn't afraid of the cat, so the cat left him alone, thinking he was a freak of nature that smelled like a rabbit and looked like a rabbit but wasn't. One day the cat decided, what the hell, that must be a rabbit, so he goes in for the pounce. Rabbit sails straight over his head and nonchalantly goes back to eating grass. The cat checked to see if anyone was looking, then slunk away in shame. Bunny's got hops. Reminds me of how my cat used to pounce on our rabbit, and one time the rabbit started hopping around with the cat on his back and it looked as if the cat was riding him. One of the greatest things I have ever seen. My dad tried to smuggle a diamond out of Sierra Leone, but the guys helping him get it through customs ran off with the diamond. Edit. Here's the full story for those who want to know. So my dad was working for a company that works in mining in Africa. He went out to inspect how the Sierra Leone operation was running. While over there he bought a diamond off a local chief who worked with the company. He bought it for much lower than its actual worth, so decided not to declare at customs and try and smuggle it through. People at the company told him what to do: pay off one guard and give him the diamond. He would then meet another guard with the diamond beyond all the checks. The second guard never showed, and that's the story. My house was broken into while I was asleep on the couch in the living room. I captured my would-be burglar with a battle axe replica that my roommate had on the wall. I made him call 911 on his own phone since I couldn't hold on to him and the axe and a phone at the same time. He tried to get away a few times. A very surprised 911 dispatcher sent the police, who eventually got there, arrested my prisoner, and thanked me for not chopping him up. So what did he say on the phone? Hey, I need to be taken into custody before I get chopped up with a battle axe. It's been a while, so I don't remember entirely what was said anymore, but I did have him turn on the speakerphone. The gist was, 911. 911, what's your emergency? Me. My address is 123 Fake Street. Someone broke into my house. 911. Where are they now? Me. I have them. 911. You have them? Me. Yeah, I caught him. He's here with me. Burglar, come quick. The guy's gonna kill me with an axe. Me. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not really sure how long it took police to show up. I had so much adrenaline flowing through my system that saying I was uncomfortably high might be a good way of describing it. Almost 20 years ago, My father sold his photo camera to buy some booze. He was an alcoholic and an abusive piece of among other equally funny things. Inside the camera bag there was a piece of paper with a handmade aperture and shutter speed chart. I had drawn little circles in that paper when I was a child. Fast forward 15 years, there's a pawn shop near the place where I work, and from time to time I go there to see what hidden gems I can find. One day there was a camera that looked quite similar to the one my father sold. I bought it on a whim, without even checking if it worked properly, just because it looked like the one he undersold. Once at home, I took a closer look, cleaned it properly and searched the bag. Yes, you know where this is going. There it was, the paper with the chart and my little circles in blue biro. I sat on the sofa for a moment just to let that WTF moment sink in. That camera is now in a place of honor among my other cameras. At church one fine Sunday, when I was around 16, I was leaning back in my chair against one of those flimsy fake walls room dividers. The wall, of course, because I really was kinda asking for it, gave way and I slipped and hit the wood floor of the gym with a sonic boom. At least it feels that way in the reverence of church meetings. It was loud enough that even the classroom feed set up next door fell completely silent. To find the source of the racket, the collapsible metal chair I'd been on folded in on me, and in my embarrassment, I began to laugh very loudly and awkwardly as I tried to untangle myself. The judgmental eyes of my peers, boring holes through my ability to focus, because of the building pressure on my abdomen from laughing and being folded in half, and perhaps because God wanted to punish me for interrupting the reverence of the room. I then proceeded to fart, the loudest fart ever produced. It reverberated off the metal chair seat that was still firmly attached to my like a drum roll from hell, ending in a sound barrier shattering squeak of a finish. Everyone in the room at this point was stunned and just stared as I laughed hysterically at the misfortune of my existence. Finally I had separated my body from the stupid chair and collected myself enough to just walk out. Only a few people giggled. For the most part everyone else just stared in stunned silence as I walked, head held high, from the chapel, never to darken the doorway again. Literally, I never went back to that church. I preferred eternal damnation, I suppose. I can laugh now. At the time it was a bit of a horrifying experience. My stepdaughter acquired a guinea pig that, big surprise, turned out to be pregnant. She gave birth to 2 normal babies and a runt that was too weak to walk or drink milk from the mother. The little guy was on the way out, so I got my stepdaughter to hold the mother in a sort of sitting position while I squeezed some milk out of a nipple that was about the size of a decent pimple. I jammed the baby onto the nipple and he finally got the idea, drinking enough to kickstart his growth. While we held mom still for about 20 minutes, he lived and we eventually gave the 4 of them to someone else. Shortly after, a fox broke into their hutch and ate all of them except the runt. When I was a kid, we live about a mile from a huge world famous zoo. Being so close, I eventually figured out a way to get in for free. This being long enough ago, there were no security cameras, so I started going in after it was closed. Doing it so often I figured out the guard's schedule and knew when it was safe to be there and not get caught. Me being a kid, I took my bike in there in case I needed a fast getaway. Me being a very bad kid, I stole beers from my brother's hiding place to stick in a backpack for private picnics in the zoo. PETA will downvote me for this, but I shared beers and peanut butter sandwiches with a large female African elephant so often that she welcomed me with a hug when I showed up on my bike. 4th grade. We're playing kickball inside for pay because it's rainy. We're in a pretty standard basketball gym with hoops at each end and bathroom locker rooms in the far end. The kind with outdoors, just the long out and back hallway for privacy. Now for the unbelievable part. During our game, on my first kick I looked at a friend and said, "I'm aiming for the hoop." Ball rolls up. I run up, wind up, and unload the most perfect kick I've ever kicked. The ball sails high and straight and true. It hits the backboard, does a little dance around the rim and plops right on through. I'm so stunned at the spectacle that I'm just standing on first watching it happen. I'm safe. Second kick, I say. I'm doing it again. I do. Everyone is stunned by this one. I'm still a bit stunned it worked. Made it to second this time. Third kick. My final chance at the plate. Kicking it at the basket is cool, but inside the park homers are cool too. I'm not super fast, so I needed to employ trickery. The outfield crew consisted of all dudes, so I aim for the girls' locker room. The kick sails long and just a bit left of the locker room door, but it lands with a bit of spin and bounces perfectly into the girls' locker room and down the little out and back hallway. No one is in the locker room, but all of the 4th grade boys are afraid of getting yelled at, so none of them try to retrieve the ball. Meanwhile, I'm closing on home plate looking to break up our tight game. I scored. We won. For any former 4th graders from Hudson Pep in Longview, Texas that feel like corroborating my story, this happened in like 1993 to 1994. I can't doubt your story. The truth is I believe you because I can't honestly think of a reason anyone would make up something so unbelievably irrelevant.